addressed.
17th, Hunter accidentally admits that it was his laptop from hell. The next day, DA Alvin Bragg indicts President Trump. June 8th, an FBI document is released showing that the Ukrainians paid the Biden crime family millions and millions of dollars. The next day, the Mar-a-Lago raid and the Mar-a-Lago indictment. Last week, Hunter Biden's sweetheart plea deal fell through when the judge realized it had blanket immunity. The following day, a superseding indictment against Donald Trump. July 31st, Devin Archer goes to testify in front of the House. That was only after they failed to put him in jail prior to the fact. What happens the next day? The January 6th indictment that we're here for today. This is not a coincidence. This is election interference at its finest against the leading candidate right now for president, for either party.
And I think that may well be the case in terms of polling. He is so far out front on the GOP side for the nomination. And I think, the polls suggest, well, mainstream media will tell you that Biden and Trump are polling neck and neck, but I don't think so. Depends on the poll. And then there's reality. And I don't think Biden is polling well at all. I don't think that he is actually, I don't think he really does have much support out there. He's a little too sleepy, maybe a lot too sleepy, and he falls down way too much. His image is tarnished, and I think he is actually a liability for the Democrats going into the next election. In fact, you've heard people here, including Lori on the show, keeps saying, if the DNC gives the public Biden again as the DNC option, a lot of the Democrat voters, especially those kind of in the RFK camp, they'll probably give America Donald Trump again. Here's Jim Jordan responding today to what was going on.
I do think the end result, the takeaway is I think this just strengthens, just hardens the support for President Trump and frankly expands it. I think Dana was mentioned earlier in the show that, you look at the poll numbers earlier in the week, I think it's 54-17 in the Republican primary. But more importantly, he's dead even with Joe Biden in the New York Times poll. So my gut tells me that's what the New York Times is saying. It's probably better for President Trump in another poll. And this, I think, only, again, hardens his support, expands his support, because the country gets it. And I think the reason that's happening is so much of the country is sick of this nonstop attack, this ridiculous attack on President Trump for 7 years now. And they're tired of this elite attitude in D.C. that says, oh, we're better than everyone else. There's a different set of rules. And I think people in flyover country, hillbillies in Ohio or Iowa or Oklahoma, they're so sick of it. We're so sick of it. We're saying we're going to support President Trump. I think that's the takeaway. I think that's the result of all this.
May well be. This time around, honestly, to me, it feels different than the last indictments. I said this, I think it was yesterday. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there is something different about this one. The previous indictments, it seemed like there was more coverage. Maybe it's just becoming routine for them to indict Trump. And so maybe it's just I'm becoming desensitized to it. And maybe the public is as well. It's kind of like, oh, here's another one. But on the other side of this, to me, this one feels more serious. I think also what the Biden camp, and I think that it is the Biden camp, not just the Department of Justice or the FBI or the justice system. I think I think Biden is probably hoping for fatigue, voter fatigue to set in, hoping that all of this lawfare will wear the public down. People will get tired of it, tired of seeing it, tired of hearing about it, tired of all the negativity surrounding it, tired of Donald Trump being martyred, being turned into, honestly, a victim. And that is why he continues to poll so strongly. Every time they indict him, every time they come after him on the legal front, he just bounces back stronger than ever. It seems like they haven't figured out that when they do this stuff to him, they just make him a victim, and people rally behind him even more, as his supporters do. It polarizes the country even more. And this is actually dangerous because it does look very much like political persecution. As a result of that, people get very emotional about it. It undermines, or erodes anyway, it erodes public confidence in the democratic system, in the integrity of government in general. It undermines trust in the legal system, in policing, in the courts. Because if you're on the Trump side, in the Trump camp, on the Republican side, the conservative side, you obviously see this as an assault, not just on Donald Trump, but on democracy itself. On the other side, they're cheering tonight. They truly are. And you can see it just in the language. Here's CNN's webpage. And they have now, they're clearly not Donald Trump fans over there. Trump pleads not guilty to J6 charges. Trump lashes out after arrest, claims persecution. He lashes out. It's the choice of words, the way that they choose to cover this stuff. Trump is facing serious charges stemming from his efforts to overturn the 2020 election as he leads the field for the GOP nomination in 2024. Next hearing in case is set for 5 days after first GOP presidential primary debate. And here's a reporter describing how Trump acted in courtroom during arraignment. Paula Reed and Evan Perez reports on what happened inside
an
a
extraordinary moment, Anderson. The former president was asked to stand and enter his own plea to the charges that have been filed against him. And I'm told he didn't even use the microphone. He just looked straight at the judge and projected his voice and entered a plea of not guilty. Now, at the hearing down in Florida, when he went through this in a federal courtroom down there, he had his lawyer enter that plea. So to hear him say that in his own voice is significant. Now the judge is reading the conditions of his release. You may remember that down in Florida, this is actually what delayed the hearing. But here she's saying that you must not violate state or federal law, and also that he cannot communicate with anyone known to be a witness about the case unless through a lawyer. Now that could get tricky because, as we know, he's listed with 6 co-conspirators, many of whom are still close associates. So much like in the Mar-a-Lago documents, States case, the fact that so many people in his inner circle are caught up in this, that will likely be a difficult issue to navigate.
Maybe it's the fact that this is his third time going through an arraignment, but his body language was, absolutely a lot different. I mean, he sat there with his hands clasped. He appeared displeased about something. There was something that the pretrial services official who was in the courtroom handed papers to his attorneys, to the Justice Department attorneys there, Tom Windham and John Lauro on Mr. Trump's side. And then they began discussing whatever it is in perhaps the bail package. That's typically the paperwork that he is handed, and then he is signing it. There was something in that paperwork that appeared to displease the former president, because he had a couple of seemed to be heated conversations with Todd Blanche, who was seated to his right. The former president mostly looked straight ahead. He looked around the room. There were a few times where he and Tom Windham, he and Jack Smith looked at each other. It was absolutely more Jack Smith looking in his direction, but the former president, because of the vantage point, absolutely saw Jack Smith. There was also, it's a lot different from the one in Miami, from the hearing in Miami, where they didn't see each other during the entire hearing. One of the things that I think was interesting was the former president. You heard him just a few times. He said yes, I do. When the judge asked him if he understood the charges, if he understood his right to remain silent, and of course, when he said when he pleaded not guilty, he didn't speak directly into the microphone. He spoke directly ahead. The demeanor of the former president, it reminded me a lot of during the presidential debates with Hillary Clinton, when candidate Clinton said something to get under his skin. That's the look he had on his face quite a few times as he sat there with his attorneys having some discussions, as he waited about 20 minutes for the judge to take her seat in the courtroom.
It's my understanding that Jack Smith, the lawyer prosecuting this case, I believe he spent quite a bit of time working in the International Criminal Court. And I think that also, I think his time there is shapes the approach that we're seeing from the prosecution. The ICC, it's a different animal than the U.S. justice system. And I think because he's worked there so long, or worked there for as long as he did, there's a level of creativity, I think, that has been superimposed over these charges. At the ICC, things are kind of made up as you go along. There's no constitution internationally, and even legal precedents are sort of set on the fly. And so laws are almost formed as they just progress and move along, dealing with international war crimes charges and things of that nature. And why is that? Well, that's because you're dealing with international issues between countries, not just a national set of laws. If you're following what I'm saying. So if you're trying to prosecute someone on a charge who is the leader of a country for a war crime, these are international laws. They're based on international, if you want to say it, common law. But that kind of law does not apply in the United States because there is an actual constitution. And that constitution, honestly, it's designed to limit the power of government and the power of the legal system against its citizenry. That includes Donald Trump. That's why I think that this case, all these indictments, probably are going to be dismissed. I think he will be found not guilty because he is protected on various levels, whether you're talking about freedom of speech, expression, his right to even challenge the election. Let's just kind of unpack this a little bit more. I've got some notes here. So his early legal defense here is taking shape, and he's facing this federal indictment, this time linked to his, attempts, honestly, to remain in power following the 2020 election. So these charges against Trump include 4 felonies, such as conspiracy to defraud the U.S. and obstruction of an official proceeding brought by special counsel Jack Smith in connection with the January 6th incident. So as you heard, Trump entered a plea of not guilty on all the charges today. The focus of this case revolves around intent and free speech. Legal experts are suggesting that a significant portion of the 45-page indictment against Trump seeks to establish Trump's awareness of his election loss and his intentions to overturn the results. The term knowingly is used over 30 times in the indictment, alleging that Trump engaged in a criminal scheme, which is, those are the words used in the document, despite knowing his claims about fraud were false. Trump's defense team asserts that he has always believed the 2020 election was, and I'm sorry, YouTube, Facebook, I'm just reporting what everybody else is reporting. Please don't ban us again. But, he said that the 2020 election was, in his words, STOL blank N. And he argues that he had the First Amendment right to express his beliefs on that issue. However, prosecutors are arguing that intent is often inferred from circumstantial evidence, and they detail instances where Trump was informed that his claims were untrue, but chose to disregard the truth. So what is the truth? What was in his head? What was his real intent? What was his real belief at the time? These are the things that they're trying to build this case around. That and evidence and testimony that will come from people like Mike Pence. I think they will be relying heavily on the former vice president. I think that much is very clear. And I think that Pence will honestly end up throwing Trump under the bus, or try, or won't hesitate to. I think Pence will testify truthfully from his perspective. And we've seen what his perspective is. Ran clips of him, yesterday again, saying that Trump's crackpot lawyers were telling Trump what Trump wanted to hear. As for the First Amendment argument, legal experts point out that while Trump had the right to publicly express his views on the election, that doesn't grant him the right to persuade others to interfere with lawful government functions and spread false information. So, overall, this case continues to be a topic for intense debate, polarization, with legal experts expressing skepticism about the viability of Trump's defense based on intent and free speech. Now, that's the CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC perspective on this. On the other side, it's a political persecution. The trial is set to have significant implications. Very significant, not just for Donald Trump, but for the entire country. This shakes the foundation of democracy on every level. It's this is the kind of thing that could break up the country, honestly, because this is just going to intensify as we progress and get closer and closer and closer to the next election. That's why they're putting fencing around again. And that's all part of the drama, the political theater. But at the same time, I think we have to be honest too. This has the potential to drive some people to the point where they would probably be willing to engage in some sort of civil unrest, not just protests, but maybe something more. And we've heard for a long time that some people believe the US and even Canada might be heading for civil war. Don't discount that. This is so volatile. We're talking about a former president of the United States running for office again, leading the pack, has the potential, the very serious potential, to become the next president, to regain the White House. And his main political opponent, Joe Biden, is sitting in the White House right now. And it's pretty clear that the DOJ, the justice system, the entire deep state political machine, you know, they're kind of on board with the DNC, you know, and that much I think is pretty clear. At least they have been. We've seen the Twitter files come out. We saw the way that the Biden administration has been directing and even manipulating social media, issuing orders, even if you want, to social media platforms to control the flow of information. And while they sit there in their news conferences at the White House and they say, "Oh, this prosecution of Donald Trump is being handled in a hands-off fashion," the DOJ is being given the latitude to operate, you know, autonomously. There's no influence coming from the White House at all. Well, Trump's lawyer, obviously, addressing that, providing a completely different perspective on it. And again, is this just a coincidence that every time more negative information comes out, embarrassing and maybe even incriminating to the Biden family because of all the information coming out from Hunter Biden's laptop, every time there's something new on that front, bam, the very next day, they hit Trump or someone around him again with some high-profile charge. Shift the focus, shift the focus, shift the focus. If it's not that, it's freaking UFOs. It's always something. Don't look over here. Nothing to see. Just Hunter Biden doing things he ought not be doing, maybe. Don't look at the money. Don't look at the flow don't look at these documents showing that, you know, the actual flow of the cash. It's it is what, as Donald Trump said, it's a sad, sad day for America. If Biden, if these people at the DOJ really cared about the country and not just about power, they would have left this alone. They would have just pushed it off to the side. In my view, this is not good for the country. And this is all so politically charged. Of course it's politically charged. It's all about politics. I don't know. It's so serious that I think, but people have become, as I said, desensitized to this. And that's extremely unfortunate because this really does have the potential to rip the country apart. I don't think that, you know, on the Republican side, There's some blame over there too, and I don't really mean blame. Blame isn't the right word. It's I'll say that there is some volatility on that side as well. That kind of comes from the QAnon groups, very kind of extreme. That's where we kind of got into trouble there, where people got into trouble on J6. It was people, two truths there. The majority of people, they're just to take in the speech. I know that a lot of people were going, hoping that Mike Pence would intervene and take steps to do what Donald Trump wanted and challenge the Electoral College. So a lot of people showed up that day hoping for that kind of outcome. They didn't get that. But the majority of the people who came hoping for that were there to take in the speech and participate in that march peacefully and then protest peacefully. But there were other people there who honestly went a little too far. And we know that. We've seen many, there are a lot of other commentators out there who have, denounced that, who have disavowed it. Me too. Whether it's Dan Bongino or even Tucker Carlson, people have acknowledged that there are people. I don't know about Tucker Carlson. I don't know if he ever did, but a lot of other, prominent conservative voices out there have come out and said, no, we are against violence, and anyone that engaged in illegal activity and got violent that day, we're not about that. We do not support that. And they don't, nor do I ever. But there were some people there who engaged in some activities that were not warranted. Are they being persecuted? Yeah, I think that the punishment being dished out even to those people in many cases is excessive. But some people did some things that were not right there either. So, but that is just a reflection of the political climate, in my view. And when you overlay the reasons why they were acting like that, and because of what they believe happened during the election, you begin to understand why they would act that way and they would feel justified in doing that. And then there's the question of what is the truth about the election. And we really, it's hard to get to the truth these days in an era of censorship. And when the courts refuse to hear legal challenges, so the evidence can't truly be provided and explored, what are they afraid of? I think maybe the truth. But that's why people acted the way that they acted. That's why they did what they did, because they believe a certain perspective on this. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're wrong. We don't know what happened for sure because we don't have all the evidence presented in court because the court cases were never heard. Nevertheless, Joe Biden is in the White House. He is the president. He is the commander in chief. He did take the oath of office. He did take the oath, the separate oath, to become the commander in chief. He has so been recognized by the Supreme Court. So there is no question that he is the sitting president and the current commander in chief. I've heard some people even sit there and say today and suggest that Joe Biden isn't the commander in chief. Well, I've been looking into those suggestions, and they don't hold water in my estimation, not at all. Biden is the commander in chief. Now, is he the legitimate commander in chief? You can decide that for yourself based on whatever information you might have. But anyway, you slice it, he's the guy in charge. Well, he's the figurehead anyway, right? There are people behind him. Of course, his political machine, his team, the DNC, other people kind of behind the scenes pulling strings. But Biden is the president, and he is the commander in chief. So we're heading into the next election. And it's volatile. And, all of this volatility is spilling over into Canada as well. I see it, I feel it, I smell it, I hear it. I read about it. People send me information. The political climate in Canada is volatile too now. And some of that is because these political, how can I put this, movements are extending up into Canada because we've gone through, we've shared the experience of the pandemic. We've shared the same political approach to dealing with that, where people's civil liberties were violated, completely disrespected, dismissed, both in Canada and the United States. So we went through a very similar experience on both sides. And whether you're talking about QAnon or conservatism or various other political ideologies, as they kind of intertwine and lead back to this kind of political perspective on the Trump side, there are a lot of people in Canada who are engaged in that. And as a result, of the shared experience, the proliferation, the expansion of these political ideas and ideologies, morphing, honestly, evolving beyond the traditional left-right paradigm. In Canada, we're getting this, it's not just fallout, it's not just a reaction, it's an extension. And I saw an interview on CBC in Canada today where a pollster who happened to be in Washington on J6, he's an American pollster, but spends a lot of time in Canada, and was interviewed about what happened in court today. And he's saying, please, Canada, don't follow what we're doing here in the United States. Everything is broken down here, and it's not clear if we'll survive this. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically kind of where he was going. And I don't think he understands. Canada's already there, man. Not maybe on the same scale, but pretty darn close. You can see it on the street when people heckle in large groups the prime minister. You can see it every weekend as people stand on the overpasses and wave their, F Trudeau flags. There's a group out there that's very upset, angry. How big is that percentage? I'm not sure. It's hard to gauge that. I don't think the polling is extensive enough on that front, but it's very apparent that it's clear, and people have a great level of dissatisfaction right now with government, and yet there's still another 50% probably of the electorate that is extremely supportive of what Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government, Liberal NDP coalition government, if you will, in Canada is doing. Bottom line, though, is everything is on a shaky foundation right now in both countries. And you can really see it. It's much more fragile than people realize, in my view. Has been for quite a while. And this will only make things worse. Trump's political rivals, though, some of them trying to score points in an unusual way. Vivek Ramaswamy, running against Trump for the GOP nomination, was at the courthouse outside, says he's actually going to file a Freedom of Information Act against the Bidens, and made a public statement there today. Here's what he had to say. And I don't know how to analyze this exactly. This is a little bit unusual. It's sort of like he's trying to suggest he's coming to Trump's defense, But at the same time, I think he's just trying, he's sort of a political opportunist here, taking advantage of the situation in order to try and get some publicity, but we'll put him on anyway.
Earlier this week, I sued the U.S. Department of Justice, and I further filed an additional FOIA request to understand what President Biden told Jack Smith, what Merrick Garland told Jack Smith, because we want the truth. Today, I'm in front of the courthouse in Washington, D.C., where the 45th President of the United States, my competitor in this race, will be arraigned later today. But I think that the symbolic moment of today is something far deeper than just this case. We live in an era of the noble lie, the so-called lie that the government tells to its people because it believes the people can't handle the truth. Why is it that we see the rise of 3 different indictments, 3 supposedly independent prosecutions at the same time in the midst of a presidential election? It's because the government does not trust the people to select their leaders. This is the old worldview rearing its ugly head again. We fought a revolution in this country in 1776 for a simple idea, that we the people determine how we select our leaders and have a government that is accountable to its people rather than the other way around. Yet today we now live in a country where when the people question that government, they are themselves the subject of scrutiny. That is wrong. I was in Nashville yesterday demanding the release of that transgender shooters manifesto. Tell the truth. Biden, Garland, tell us the truth about what you actually told Jack Smith. And you go back over the last year, it's the same story all over again. Tell us the truth about the COVID origin. Tell us the truth about where the virus originated. Tell us the truth about what we know about vaccine mandates and mask mandates. Even in a recent hearing about UFOs in Congress, just tell us the truth instead of repeatedly hiding from us the information that we need as a people. Turns out that trust is a two-way relationship. The reason that the people don't trust the government is that our government no longer trusts the people. So is this a politicized persecution through prosecution? I certainly believe it is. But it's the government's job to be transparent about exactly who told who what to bring about these prosecutions, because the fact they're arising at the same time is no accident. And I think it's best that the government now be transparent with the people about what their intentions actually are. Without that transparency, we can only expect far worse in the future.
Stay with me. I'll be back after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Can you imagine what would happen if they put Donald Trump in jail, convict him? Can you imagine Donald Trump running for office from jail? Can you imagine what the reaction would be in the country? And then if he won, what would he do? He could pardon himself and get out of jail. Wow. Or maybe he gets convicted. Maybe whoever is president pardons Trump at that point. Strange situation. Talk about volatile. This is not working out very well. Gonzalo Lira, he well, you know what? Before we get into that, maybe I'll save that for after. When our guest, we'll wrap up with our guest, Rhonda, who's going to be here. Maybe I'll tee up with what we're going to talk about with Rhonda with this. There was a Calgary police have launched a hate crime investigation after, I would call him probably a pride activist, was videotaping. This guy's name is Mr. Fab, is what his handle is on Twitter. And there's this, he had this exchange with a guy, and where a pride rainbow had been painted on the street, Pride Walk. And this was in Calgary. So now police, as a result of this video I'm about to show you, have launched a hate crime investigation. Okay. So some of this language may be offensive to people. I'm gonna run it because it's the way it went down. I'm not gonna edit this. I didn't. It's up on social media tonight, and this is the way it happened. So listen to this. Again, if you have kids or whatever, you might not want them to hear this. If you're easily offended, you may not want to hear this, but this is reality. And yeah, this guy who posted this video was down there looking at and shooting this pride sidewalk that had been painted using, I think, funds from a sponsor. I think it might have been a communications company. And then this other guy comes along and they get into this.
You don't like it? What did you just say to me? You're a fucking fag. Fuck off. You're not human. There's only two genders. Say it again. Say it for all the people to hear. Oh, fuck. Say it again. You fucking faggot, queer. Fuck off. Fag. You don't like it? What did you just say to me? You're a fucking fag. Fuck off. You're not human. There's only two genders. Say it again. Say it for all the people to hear. Oh, fuck. Say it again. You fucking faggot, queer. Fuck off.
Okay. So that's what
you don't like it.
That's what happened there. And this guy's name, what was his name? I'll get his name for you tonight. I can't, I had it on, maybe I've got it in my notes here. I'm sorry, it slips my mind at the time. Anyway, Mr. Fab. Maybe that's all you need to know. Mr. Fab. Yeah, So anyhow, here's Rhonda. Let's bring Rhonda in. Hey, Rhonda.
Hi, Rick. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good.
That's good. I'm glad to hear you're doing well, because you've been under pressure and stress and no fun for you lately.
Yes,
Yeah, sorry to
I
see
agree.
that. Yeah. Let's just kind of fill people in on how all of this came to be. You are on municipal council in Chatham, Kent,
Yes.
Ontario, Canada, where we both live.
Yes.
And you've been told that you're not going to get paid for 3 months.
Well,
because
I haven't officially been told that. It's been recommended by the Integrity Commissioner of Chatham, Kent. It's been recommended that I not be paid for 3 months.
Okay. And all of this because of controversy surrounding the pride flag issue. And it's wasn't just the pride flag, it was flags in general, where at municipal buildings, and I think specifically at the municipal town hall in our community, they have like flag months, like where they'll put a charity flag up, or different community groups will run a flag up the flagpole outside the civic center, and
That's
they'll
right.
say this is United Way month, or pick an organization. But some organizations were not being allowed to fly their flag.
That is
Like
correct.
some church groups were being told, nope, not going to fly your flag. So your position then became, well, I'll let you explain what your position was on it.
Well, yeah. So in the municipality that we live in right now, it's the mayor's office that makes the sole decision. They make a unilateral decision of which flags fly and which flags don't fly. And there was a special request for a flag to go up from it's called Life in Motion, and it's an umbrella of a right to life organization here in Chatham, Kent, a nonprofit organization, and so they requested that their flag go up, and the request it wasn't denied, it was actually ignored. So, and they're a long-standing organization. They've served our public for a multitude of years. They're actually not really a pro-life organization. They're actually a pro-choice organization, because what happens with this organization is women come in with unplanned pregnancies, and they give them options of how they can navigate through the pregnancy, and they give them all the options. So that would be, adoption, or carry the child and give life to the child, or if need be, abortion. So it is actually a pro-choice organization. Anyway, this organization requested to have their flag fly, because in Chatham, Kent, we fly all flags, or I thought. Anyway, so this organization's request was ignored for 3 weeks. So then I put a flag motion forward to make it fair for everyone. And I thought, rather than pick and choose which flags will fly, I thought we can solve that problem by only flying the Canadian flag, the provincial flag, and the municipal flag. And that covers everybody, as far as I'm concerned. And a lot of people agree with that. That encompasses all people in Chatham, Kent, in Ontario, in Canada. What is more inclusive than that? Well, that wasn't the case. So I presented it to the council, and the motion failed. So be it. And then beyond that, there was a whole firestorm of events that followed. I received a lot of attacks on, different avenues. People were attacking me on social media, emails. I received a horrific card from a satanic abortion clinic telling me that one of my constituents made a donation on my behalf for abortions to happen and to be donated to satanic cult reasons or something. I don't even know. Just weird things like that happened. And I made some social media posts. One was a nearby community, Norwich, in Oxford County. They had a very similar motion to mine, and theirs passed. So they voted it in to only have the 3 flags. And so one of my social media posts said, yay, I'm so happy for Norwich. I wish Chatham-Kent Council felt the same. And that is one of the posts that I'm being called up on the carpet for, because I guess it was bullying and intimidating and harassing people. There's others too. There's other posts. One post was in regards to a local high school that had another flag flying underneath the Canadian flag. That secondary flag just happened to be the pride flag. And some of my constituents were very upset about it. So they reached out to me. So I just, again, put out a social media post with a picture of the flag, the 2 flags. I also copied and pasted words verbatim from the Government of our Government of Canada's website, stating that no flag should fly underneath the Canadian flag. And I put a picture of the actual flag at the high school. I had some words that said, if you are impassioned about only seeing the Canadian flag fly on a flagpole, respectfully contact the school and share your feelings. Well, apparently parents were calling the school, and one person called the school and said, if you don't take the flag down, I'm going to come and rip it down myself. And the principal called the police, and and then apparently it came that I was inciting all of this violence and hate, and it completely got blown out of proportion. I didn't incite anybody because I never got a phone call from a police officer. My name's not in any kind of police report. So it's been all construed just to, formulate some sort of witch hunt against me, I'm going to say. So, and there's been other posts, but a lot of people have seen the posts that the Integrity Commissioner is citing in her report, and no one, including myself and my lawyer, can find any evidence that I have bullied or harassed or intimidated anyone. So she's really grasping as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you're taking a lot of slings and arrows, and not for a whole lot of pay to begin with, and right. But now, what little pay you get as a counselor, there's threatening to take away from you for 3 months.
Yes.
Well, how much does a counselor make? Around what, 30,000 a year?
Gross. They gross 37,000. That's gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You actually have to pay tax on that too.
Right. Yes.
Doesn't leave much at the end of the day.
It isn't. And I'll be honest, I never entered the arena of politics for the money in the first place. That wasn't my primary reason. It was, to advocate and fight against the current state of our country, our province, and, even within our municipality, and advocate for people and represent the voices that aren't heard. So that was my primary reason for entering municipal politics.
Yep.
So if they pass the report, my colleagues on council, if it passes, that is the most severe punishment, is the 3 months of pay. They can't do anything else. Mind you, I'm sure they would like to, but at this point, there is nothing else to do. And so I'm thinking, I don't know, but I'm thinking they're probably thinking, if I'm not going to get paid, that I'm not going to show up. But they don't know me very well, because I will show up and I'll be there with bells on. Every council meeting, I will fully participate during those 3 months, in spite of if they decide to sanction me and take away my pay for 3 months, I will still be there. So
how does this work? Does council make the final decision?
Correct. So on August 14th, the report will be presented to council. Well, they've already received it. It's public. anyone can go on and see it. And it's presented to council. My lawyer is actually going to be there, and he is going to speak and deliver a deputation. There are no other deputations that will be allowed. So if somebody wanted to speak on my behalf, it's not allowed. And then she, the integrity commissioner, she will also be there to answer questions. And then there will be debate that will follow. And then after all of the discussion and debate is done, then my fellow councillors will vote on whether they will adopt the report, which will, take away my pay for 3 months, or if they will vote against it. So, and I am not allowed to be in council chambers at that time. The very weird part is I'm going to say 99.9% sure. I do know, I know who a few of my accusers are, and one, I'm 99.9% sure is a council member. So oddly enough, that council member will be able to take part in the debate and the vote. So basically, it's like I've been charged with a criminal offense or accused, by someone, and that person is now my juror, which is really weird and very undemocratic, if you ask me.
Yes, I certainly understand the perspective on that.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness.
The Councillor Code of Conduct, now that I've really looked at it, I looked at it at the beginning when I came on to council in November of 22. I looked at it, obviously, because we have to abide by it. But now that I've really scrutinized it, it's a really poorly written document that needs to be revamped. And I think that will be something that I will do sometime during my term, is to at least put a motion forward to rewrite the document, because it's really an anti-democratic piece of I'm not going to say legislation, but like a rule within our municipality. So
right, yeah. This is tough. So do you have any friends on council?
I do.
Yeah.
I I do. 100% I have 2. And I could have a couple more. So I'm not 100% sure how things are going to go. This is my 4th investigation. It's really unfortunate, because every time I get investigated by the integrity commissioner, it takes away from what I was elected to do, to some extent, because I still do what I was elected to do, but it's like I have to spend the time defending myself with her and the energy. It's really silly, but it's just basically, since I've been on council, I have had to deal with the integrity commissioner from accusations from people I have no idea. They're just, ghosts that are accusing me of things. And then she has the ability to consider it vexatious or, nonsense, but she has followed through and investigated me on all of these things, and she continues to, and she probably will continue to for the rest of my term, although her term comes due in November. So we'll see how that works out when because council will vote on who our next integrity commissioner is. So
interesting.
mhm.
Did you ever expect that the level of pushback would be this intense before you got into this job?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. It's really unfortunate, because I will be the first person to say if I've done something wrong. I have not bullied anyone. I have not harassed anyone. I have not intimidated anyone. This report is based on social media posts that I've done on my own Facebook. That's it. There's nothing else that she is citing. And, and she actually includes them in the report. So you can actually see what she's basing the report on. And there's really nothing to substantiate the claims that she's making. And anyone that has seen and looked at the report, they're baffled by it. They're thinking, what is she basing this on? Because it's just my post. I might have, a few sentences. One thing she doesn't like are the ensuing comments that are on my social media from followers. She doesn't like that. She wants me to censor. I told her I will not censor comments. Unless it's somebody that's threatening to kill or hurt someone. Of course I would censor that type of a comment, but beyond that, I'm not going to censor someone's comment. That's not my job, and it's my own Facebook. So I don't know. It's just, I just feel like her bias is really coming through very loud and clear. So, and it's unfortunate that there's 17 of us. Well, there's actually 18 of us, but one counselor is off right now, battling cancer, but there's 17 of us. And, we all have different worldviews, ideologies, and that's okay because, that's what makes up a democracy. But because I have such a strong, conservative / libertarian / Christian view, some of my colleagues on council cannot accept that, and they want to censor me and sanction me. And it's very unfortunate that they are spending their energy doing that. And, whereas they should be out in the community and advocating for their constituents. But instead, they're focusing all their energy on what is Rhonda doing? What is she saying? And it's apparently an issue that I have a lot of supporters. That's an issue with the integrity commissioner as well. She didn't come out and say it, but it's almost like it's threatening that I have a lot of people that support me, which is bizarre.
This, to me, this situation, it's sort of a local representation of what we're seeing regionally, provincially, nationally, and even internationally in terms of the political landscape. And I think that's why your story has made not just national, but even international headlines, why many of our viewers, even in the United States tonight, are taking note of what has happened to you, what continues to happen to you. Do you think that's fair? Is this a reflection of where we're at politically? I mean, even in a way, it's an extension of what we're seeing with Donald Trump tonight and his indictment.
Yes, it is. And again, it's an attack. It's an attack on conservatives and Christians. That's basically what it is. So I don't know how else to say it, but
and because your motion was not really directed at the pride flag or the LGBTQ plus S plus community, it was really the flag issue in general, and it was about certain groups being ignored. Therefore, if you can't accommodate everyone, then just keep it generic,
simple,
right?
Yes, yes. My motion did not mention the pride flag or any special interest group. It mentioned none of them. So, in all fairness, my motion was hijacked and made out to be something that it wasn't. They made me out to be something that I am not. I'm not anti-LGB and whatever.
I can't
the rest
keep the
of
letters straight either.
Yeah,
It's too many letters,
at this point, these are my feelings, and I've asked and I've consulted a lot of people in the community, even lesbian and gay and bisexual people. I really don't feel that lesbian and gay and bisexual people they're not ostracized anymore. We all know lesbian and gay and bisexual people, and I don't think that most people treat them any differently, nor should we. They're part of, there's a lot of contributing members of society, and we don't really care what they do in their bedrooms, nor should we care what they do in their bedrooms. So, I do personally.
Generally speaking, I agree with you. I think that overall people get along and
That's
they're
right.
tolerant, generally speaking. Now,
Yeah.
I would say this, and maybe I can get you to reflect on this for us. I think that because we've seen such polarization politically, that we're getting some incidents like the one that I just ran. I don't know if you saw it before you came on. So you do see some things like that happen in the community. But I think those things, because of social media, you get a spotlight, and mainstream media too, where they'll shine like a heavy duty spotlight on it, focus on one thing, and then blow that up. Right.
Right.
And so the person who posted that video, I know, is a pride activist. And so it's like, oh, there's one that we can put up and then use that to generate a bunch of hype and draw a lot of attention to it and get people jacked up. I see some of that going on the other side too. And then we see these people coming head to head on the street and arguing and shouting and fighting. I don't like that. But that to me represents the extremes. When I'm out in the community, though, and I'm at the grocery store or just walking down the street, people are getting along. The sky is blue. Everybody's fine. Just give me your thoughts on that, and maybe just comment too on whether you think it's appropriate for Calgary police to treat that video that we ran as a hate crime investigation.
No, I agree with you that it is the media. It's the media and the government that is hyping all of this up and making it more than what it really is. I like, and another thing is I know a lot of LGBT people that they don't agree with the whole. They think the whole Pride movement has been hijacked and it's being embellished and made more than what it actually is. And I don't know. I just think people everybody should just leave everyone alone and just carry on life and quit.
Live and let live, right?
Yeah. Quit making this such a spectacle and making it something that it is not. It isn't. I will say I struggle with I don't agree with transgender people being for example, a biological male being in women's sports. It's unfair and it shouldn't be happening. I don't think a biological male should be in a women's change room.
Yep.
It's just wrong. And I don't believe gender ideology needs to be taught in our schools. But beyond that, everything should just be pretty smooth sailing, but it's not. And I think a lot of it has to do with our prime minister. He's been pushing this narrative big time. So
100%. I'm with you on that. And I think it's very clear that he has been using this as a wedge issue. I've been saying for a long time too, for the last few months, that I think that all this, the confrontations in the street, the heckling of the prime minister, while it might make some people feel good, I see it almost like a trap. It's like when I see Justin Trudeau wading into those crowds and heading right into the center of the storm. It's like he wants it. He's just hoping that someone throws gravel at him again,
right? Because then he can play
whatever.
the victim. It's the victim syndrome, and there are many people who will feel bad for him. Oh, that wasn't nice what people are doing to him and what they are saying to him. And and in defense, I mean, no one should be throwing anything at him or threatening him. I mean, a lot of the things that are being said to him, I do agree with the people that are saying it, not in a non-threatening way, as long as it's not, I don't want to kill him or anything, but
exactly. Yeah.
But some of the things that people are saying, like resign, I hear that said to him all the time. And yes, I agree. resign.
And
So
if you're the prime minister, you have to expect that some people are going to shout that at you,
well,
regardless
that's right.
of, you know, who is the prime minister. There will always be people sitting there saying, resign, we don't like you.
Well,
It comes with
and
the
you know,
territory.
any politician, I mean, I know it well because everything that I've gone through and the things that have been said to me, yeah, you got to develop thick skin. So
Yeah. But what isn't right is for them to try to shut you down and
no,
shut you up.
absolutely.
That's not right.
They're infringing on my charter rights. It's basically some people, the people that just don't agree with my ideologies and my views, and they want to shut me down because they don't think I should have a platform, and they don't think that I should have followers and supporters, and they don't think that I should say, you know, we don't need to have all of these special interest flags flying, and we don't need to be teaching gender ideology in the schools. And they don't like that I'm saying that. But
And as I look at this, it's just an ongoing, it's just more of the same, really, because this is just their political ideology on display, where they do not respect people's rights, your rights. We saw that on full display during the pandemic when they
mhm,
voted for mask mandates, even before, like mask rules, even before the
yes.
province or federal government imposed them. They were like, yeah, let's do this. And lockdowns and all of these things. The municipal council here was all in 150% on all of those things, because they are a neoliberal woke bunch over there at City Hall, by
Mhm.
and large. And this is again just another example of that, where they don't care about your rights, they don't care about your constituents' rights, they don't care about free speech. Do you want to respond to that?
Um, well, that's very possibly true, and I will know that for sure after August 14th, after this comes to vote.
Mhm.
And it's a public vote, it's open. Anyone can come and watch it unfold, and I will know who is against me. Like I said, I know for sure I have a few allies. I'm hoping I have more. And um, during, you know, backing up a bit, before I was on council, I do know there were two for sure councillors that are still on there right now that were trying to fight against the, you know, the masks and the vaccines and all of that. But I mean, that was only two. So they get shut down as well. Um, it's kind of actually bizarre because Chatham-Kent is a conservative base. And but when I look around the horseshoe, I don't see it reflected with the elected representatives. So it's kind of perplexing how we have such a liberal slash NDP heavy municipal council. And I know a lot of people, they say, well, councillors are supposed to be kind of nonpartisan and unbiased, but that's not true. Everybody's going to have their own bias, and everybody's going to bring their own political views to that table. And, you know, I could tell you within a month of being on council who everyone is. I could tell how they align just by the way that they vote. So it's just something that now people are coming to me and saying, oh, I wish I would have known that about this councillor. I wouldn't have voted for them if I would have known that they were a liberal, or I wouldn't have voted for them if I would have known they were NDP, or maybe someone might say I wouldn't have voted for Rhonda if I would have known she was a conservative. So it's almost like it would be a good thing if municipal candidates were very open and transparent about their political ideology, so that people knew who they were electing to municipal council, even though you're not really representative of any political parties, but you are. You really are, because your bias comes through in the way that you vote. So
Yeah, and I think that you've really touched on something important there, and that's why it's so important for you to be on council, is this. Partisan politics is not really in play visually at
Right.
the municipal level in Canada. But the different political groups, political parties do engage in local politics because they encourage their party members at the grassroots level to get involved at the municipal level because they know they can have huge influence politically from the local level upward. And
Right.
they've been engaged at that level for a long time. And as a result, they've been able to really capture just about every municipality across the entire country. And so they
Absolutely.
put their candidates in, they put their political machines behind those local candidates.
Mhm.
They don't portray them or display their political affiliations during municipal elections, but then they flood the local council with their elected representatives and take over the municipal council. And then they
Mhm.
push their political ideologies and agendas at the local level, and then also reinforce and support the policies that come from senior levels of government as well. And they
Right.
all work together at the party level, the electoral district, riding association levels,
Mhm.
all of those things. So it absolutely is partisan. And the reason I think that those guys have been so successful is because on the sort of the left side of the political spectrum, those guys have always for a long time been more organized, more politically engaged. While on the conservative side, where people are more individualistic,
Mhm. I
they're
agree.
busy working. They're not as inclined to become involved in groups or collective activities to
Yeah.
kind of, right. But
Yeah,
that
I
I
agree.
Yeah, but I think that you're kind of helping to change that, along with some other people who just with since the pandemic, we've seen more people get engaged at the local level and get elected to council. And I think that's why they see you as such a threat, Rhonda.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Well,
because
obviously, that's all I can see it as because, like I said, and somebody could say I'm being biased because I'm talking about myself, but I truly don't see that I have done anything wrong. I
no,
truly don't.
not at all.
I've
This is
just
entirely
spoke. I
political.
spoke my truth. I've spoken the truth of thousands of people in Chatham, Kent, and I know that from the uh, the plethora of support that I've received. I'm receiving emails constantly and messages, and they're coming through to council as well. Like all of the council members are receiving these messages, you know, and sadly, if council does adopt this report, it will divide our council, and we still have 3 more years of trying to work together as a council to further promote Chatham Kent and make Chatham Kent a better place. But it's going to be very difficult to do that when we know that it's very divided. If someone votes to adopt this report and I know it because I'm going to know who votes for it and I'm going to know who votes against it. It will be difficult for me to overcome knowing that that person actually wanted to see me sanctioned. So, and if they had a motion coming up, which, to be honest, I know that I will do my best to remain unbiased. And if I know if somebody, Councillor Sally has a motion that I think is in the best interest of Chatham Kent, and she did vote against me, I would still vote in favor of her, but it won't be as easy to do it knowing that she voted against me. So it's a shame that the integrity commissioner has put Chatham Kent Council in this position because it's a very polarizing issue. And I know there's councillors that don't agree with my views and they might vote against me. And it will be somewhat difficult to move forward from it. And I guess, heal as a council from this. But I don't know. We'll see how it unfolds on August 14th.
Well, this is an issue that isn't just Canadian, it's across the US. I know that in the community of Dearborn, Michigan, they voted there on a very similar motion. Theirs though was, I mean, it was straight up an issue over the pride flag, and the
Mhm.
council there voted against it. They will not fly that pride flag outside
Right.
their municipal buildings. So that's the end. That was the way they went on the whole thing. And that wasn't, a generic motion like yours was. They really did make that an LGBTQS plus
Right.
issue.
Right. Exactly like the one in Norwich County. Theirs was specific to pride as well.
Yeah.
So, and I really think it's a good thing. Maybe we just need to stop all of the special interest flags, all of them. And the reason being, so there's 104,000 people in Chatham, Kent, and I can assure you that not everyone, and probably less than half of Chatham, Kent residents align with the Pride movement. So when that flag is flying, it's actually, it's not inclusive because it's not including everyone in Chatham, Kent. And there could be some other flags that we fly. I can't actually think of any off the top of my head, but there's probably some other flags that are being flown that may, they're discriminating against people that don't agree with them. And municipal politics, we shouldn't be doing that. We should be encompassing everyone. And I CBC interviewed me, and I told them, I said, there's nothing wrong with councillors taking part in the, pride events. There's nothing wrong with councillors taking part in Christian events. There's nothing wrong with councillors taking part in Muslim events or Islamic events or anything, because we should be taking part in events that include all of the people in our municipality. So so that's a good thing that we are very diverse on council, and that we do represent and support different organizations in our municipality. But we should respect the different councillors and what they bring to the table, and not ostracize them like I'm being sanctioned and ostracized for what my views are and for what the people that I represent, because there are a lot of people in Chatham, Kent that think the same way as I do. So,
well, I think, in just my opinion, but I think that you are making a difference on council. I think that you're representing a portion of the population that until now had been, without a voice on council. I think there was the vaccination issue at the municipal level that you brought that forward, and you were successful in getting that overturned, right? So just tell people what happened with that vote.
First of all, when I started, councillors had to be vaccinated to not to run, but to be in council chambers. So the first motion was to drop the vaccination requirement for council members, because it was just council members that had to be vaccinated. The rest of the people in council chambers, it didn't matter. They weren't asking, they weren't requiring. So if a guest came in to watch council, nobody knew if that person was vaccinated. So it was a really bizarre rule. Anyway, that ended up going by the wayside. And then the next motion was to drop vaccination for new employees. Anybody at the time, anybody that was applying to the municipality had to provide their vaccination status. So I put forth a motion to drop that, and administration knew that I was doing it, and they didn't want me to put it forward until January. But I thought, well, what are we waiting for January for? So I put it forward. And before it was voted on, administration dropped it on their own. So it was kind of bizarre how that happened. But I believe that they dropped it because they didn't want it to be they didn't want it in council's hands. They wanted to make the decision. So they ended up dropping the vaccination requirement for employees as well.
Yeah. Well, see right there, just having that voice on council, having your voice there, it puts the issue front and center. It
Mhm.
forces scrutiny, action. That's how you make a difference, right? And then things roll from there. So I think that's extremely important. That being said, are you still happy that you ran for council?
Yeah, I'm happy. I like helping people. I've volunteered my whole adult life. I've been a volunteer in our community, and that's how I sort of see this as volunteering. And if my pay gets taken away for 3 months, I will be volunteering. Truly. So yeah, I'm happy. I just don't like the dark and the ugly of it, like what's happening right now. It's not, that's not what I really signed up for. It's unfortunate that it's happening. And I think it doesn't need to be happening, but this is just it's an agenda. And this is what's happening, like you said, all over the country. And it's really nonsensical. It shouldn't be happening.
I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between what you're going through right now and what Donald Trump is going through.
No, exactly.
It's just on a different
at
scale.
some point it becomes laughable. I mean, I was actually interviewed last night by Rebel News, and it was David Menzies, and I told him, I said, it's my 4th investigation. And he said, well, how long have you been on council? And I said, I haven't been on council a year, since November. Like, honestly. I mean, it is a modern day witch hunt, and I'm not being disrespectful, but that's what it feels like. People are watching my every move, and sometimes I look out my window or I'm driving and I'm thinking, is somebody watching me? It's a very bizarre feeling that I feel like I'm always being watched.
Yeah, so you were interviewed by David Menzies from Rebel News yesterday, which tells me you probably went to that book signing for Tamara Litch. Is that?
I did.
Is that where you were? Yeah,
yes.
So tell me what happened there.
Oh, it was nice. It actually took place in my ward in a little community called Dresden, and it was a full house. It was sold out. So it started off with book signing. So people, if they already had her book, Hold the Line, they could bring it, or they had copies there, obviously. So I bought a copy, and you stood in line and you got to meet Tamara, and she signed the book. You could get a picture, photo op with her. So then after everybody had pretty well done the book signing, then we all sat down, and David Menzies spoke. I'd say he spoke for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then Tamara came up and she spoke, and kind of, everybody obviously knew what has gone on in her life, and she brought us up to speed and what she'd gone through and what she's still going through and what she's going to be embarking on. And then she did a chapter. She read a really good chapter from her book. So that girl has gone through a lot. She really has. And she smiles and she is happy. And I give her a lot of credit for what she's gone through, and, still having the will to persevere and fight through it. So it was good.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she's coming to anybody's community in Canada, but I suggest, if you have an opportunity, go out and go out and see her.
Well, you're enduring as well. You're fighting for freedom as well. And if I had a hat on right now, I'd take it off.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you. Well, you are too. You are too. You just have a different platform than I do. But
yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy world that we're living in, and but in my mind, I think if Justin Trudeau is, when the time comes that he's no longer prime minister, I feel like the tides will turn. That's just what I think, and I hope I'm right. And I do know that day will come. I don't know when it will come. but I think the spirit of Canadians will change because it starts at the top. When you have a person like him at the helm, it just flows right down to the bottom. And I honestly don't even know how anyone can support that man and think, oh, he's a wonderful guy or he's doing such a great job.
Yeah, even
And
his wife has issues with him,
yes,
leading to
well,
much speculation about how he got that bandage on his head.
I know, right? um,
I
and
hate to laugh, but
it's very bizarre. I mean, everyone knows they've been separated for 3 years probably. And why I really question why now? What's happening? There's something more to the story. I just can't put my finger on it. Why they are announcing their separation at this specific time.
something's going on.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there is. I just don't know what it is. I do know that Justin Trudeau, in my opinion, I think he wants to destroy how we as society view the nuclear family, and he wants to create something different. And I'm just wondering if, not being with not having a wife and it's not about being divorced. I mean, I'm divorced and I'm not really going that avenue, but just, I don't know. I don't really know, but there's just something bizarre about them announcing this right now. I don't know. I think something's going to unfold. I just don't know what it is.
She probably has a boyfriend and that she wants to be able to go out to the movies with in public.
Maybe, or maybe he has a boyfriend. I don't know.
He does. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, or maybe he doesn't want to be a man. I don't know.
I don't know either. You may have hit the nail on the head. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, there's something
going on.
There's something brewing. I just don't know what it is, but we will find out because we always do.
Well, he's always eager to take part in those LGBTQS plus pride parades.
Yeah,
So,
he is, and he really pushes it. There's a big push. It's not that he's just trying to be accepting. He's pushing it. So
yes.
I'm not sure and that in itself, I think, is a big push to destroy the nuclear family because they're starting right in our schools with teaching and confusing our children. Our children, I'm hearing so many stories. Our children are so confused. Our little children, they just don't understand. They don't know. They're asking their parents, "Is that a boy? Is that a girl? Am I a boy? Am I a girl?" It's sad, and I don't know. And it's all coming from him. It's like the top, and it's just trickling down. So
yeah. Well, by the Biden administration engaging in a lot of that as well. You're seeing it in the States. You're seeing it really heavy in Canada, though. You really are.
So. Yeah, I think I mean, I don't even know which country's worse. Is it worse in the United States, or maybe it is worse here? But I do know that Donald Trump has, if he's elected, he's spoken and he said what he will do to eradicate all of this, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah. Any final thoughts tonight, Rhonda? I'm so grateful for you coming on to join us tonight. Just give us a final wrap up. Nothing.
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of sitting back, waiting till August 14th to see how council decides on this, and I'm hoping that they will vote the report down and don't accept it. But I mean, it's up to them how they decide, and it is what it is. If they adopt it and say, "Yep, we think Rhonda's harasses people and bullies people and intimidates people," if that's what they think of me, then so be it. Let the chips fall where they may, and I'll just move forward from it.
Well, I hope they voted down too. I think that's the right thing to do. I don't think that this has merit at all, especially when you really look at what the motion was. I know you personally, and I know what's in your heart. And This is not proper. It's entirely political. I think it's extremely unfortunate, and I admire you. I'm so grateful for what you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you. And I
Yeah.
appreciate the support that I'm receiving from you and a lot of other people. It keeps me going.
Well, as long as we have a platform, it's here to be shared with you. That's what we're here for. So
Awesome.
we'll have you back, and we'll follow up on the 14th and
Yeah,
watch what happens in council, see what they do with this.
sounds
Yeah.
good.
All right.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ron de Jubenville, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
Ron. All right.
Take
Talk to
care.
you again. See you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, folks, I will be back after this, and the Maverick newscast for tonight will continue.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so what's up next? Gonzalo Lira. Journalist working in Ukraine, as we showed you the other night. He okay, so Gonzalo Lira arrested because the Ukrainian government accused him of being a pro-Russian propagandist, violating Ukrainian law, then released, then arrested again, then released. Then we showed you video of him as he was about just before he was going to cross the border into Hungary. Why he chose Hungary? Well, he kind of explained why he was heading to Hungary: to escape from Ukraine, finding a way to get the ankle bracelet that was being used to track him while he was under house arrest still after being released on bail. He said, that it wasn't that simple to get to the war front. He couldn't just get to say Russia because that area was mined and so on. But it was a little perplexing to see that he had posted on social media in a very public way, very extensively, before trying to cross over into Hungary. And he was hoping that they wouldn't have a computer record of him at the border. Well, tonight, and we alluded to this yesterday, where, he's being accused of being a Ukrainian agent, an SBU agent, by prominent people online, prominent voices like Scott Ritter, but he's not the only one. This is a very strange situation. There's been this ongoing feud between Scott Ritter, former UN weapons inspector who has been on this program, And I've not spoken to Mr. Ritter about this, but I know that they've had an ongoing feud because there are videos still up from both of them talking about each other. A little bit weird because Scott Ritter originally posted online supporting Gonzalo Lira when he was arrested the first time. In fact, here I'll bring that one up, and I'll show you what Scott Ritter was saying about Gonzalo Lira at the time. This is after Gonzalo Lira's first arrest.
Gonzalo Lira. Gonzalo Lira is an American Chilean citizen, one-time lifestyle coach turned independent journalist who has been known for the quality of his product coming from Kharkov, a city embroiled in the middle of the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Gonzalo Lira had built up quite a following online, both through his YouTube broadcasting, on Twitter, and on Telegram. And he was noted for providing sharp, insightful, fact-filled analysis of the conflict that was counter to the narrative that had been put forward by the Ukrainian government and echoed mindlessly by the mainstream media here in the West. Gonzalo had said if he had been offline for more than 12 hours, that people should start to be concerned. Most of us thought this was just hyperbole, a man who maybe was trying to spice up his broadcasts a little bit. But on the morning of April 15th, Gonzalo went silent. He was silent for more than 12 hours. He was silent for more than a day, 2 days, 3 days. But it wasn't just Gonzalo that was silent. It was every journalist who was covering the conflict in Ukraine. It was the United States government who should have been shouting at the top of its voice about the disappearance of an American citizen who was simply expressing his freedom of speech, his journalistic initiative to report something that he thought was the truth. Fortunately, Gonzalo has reappeared. He was, in fact, picked up by the Ukrainian Secret Service. They roughed him up a little bit, but he's alive. He's not broadcasting, but he's alive.
I'm okay. Physically, I'm okay. I don't have anything that I can say publicly other than I'm okay.
But this should be a lesson to everybody. When you silence one journalist, you silence every journalist. And hopefully big wigs at the New York Times, at the Washington Post, at CNN, at NBC, and other journalistic outlets are taking note, because it has a chilling effect on everybody. Remember, information is power.
So that was Scott Ritter's position at the time. But then, of course, after Gonzalo Lira reappeared, then he was facing legal issues in Ukraine, was told not to leave. He was then rearrested because he continued to post online as a journalist, and so he was rearrested, then released again. Then we get to where we're at now, where he was trying to escape because he explained in some other online posts as he was about to cross over into Hungary, which was the country that he chose as his destination. He said, when I was in jail, some of the other prisoners that said, "You're an idiot. They were opening the door for you, telling you to leave." So he chose to go to Hungary. Made no sense to me why he would choose Hungary. His choice to go over the border, his decision to post online while he's trying to escape, made no sense to me. None of this really made a lot of sense to me. But then accusations of being an SBU agent. And this all stems as well, I think, from a sort of an online feud between Gonzalo Lira and Scott Ritter. Gonzalo Lira posting this about 6 or 7 months ago in response to Mr. Ritter. Hang on, here we go.
He declared on his Telegram channel, and so anyway, Scott Ritter, while I was away, and of course, unbeknownst to me, he declared on his Telegram channel, and I'm going to read it. Quote, Gonzo Lira, a Chilean social media, quote, influencer, end quote, who resided in Kharkov, Ukraine, and who published online content critical of the Ukrainian government, was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered by the Kraken unit, part of the Azov battalion affiliated with the Ukrainian Security Services, SBU. But it seems to me, with his recent statements and an article that I'm going to read now, it's clear to me that he is no longer to be trusted. And I am certainly not going to trust anything that he says. I'll listen to him, but I'm certainly not going to really depend on any of his judgments, because I think that he is unsound to co-opt the alt media. And a lot of other people, smart people, people with a lot of military experience, like Andrei Martyanov, they've said, also Moon of Alabama, they've said that, Ritter's sudden U-turn is just bizarre, especially because it doesn't correspond to the facts. A nice paycheck from some nice think tank. The man is 60 years old, and because of the various personal circumstances that he's been involved in, and as I understand it, there was a stint in jail, and because of it, I'm sure that his economic circumstances are fairly straightened, and so getting a steady paycheck, that seems very attractive enough for him to cash in his integrity and start spewing a lot of Atlantic Monthly bullshit, the description below. He's selling himself for a paycheck to get in with the people who push the narrative, who push the lies. He wants to be another liar like the rest of them. I have no time for such an individual. I have no time whatsoever, and I'm not going to pay attention to him anymore. You are free to do as you see fit. But as far as I'm concerned, I am not going to pay attention to him. And quite frankly, anybody who pushes him as any kind of authority on anything, I will think less of you as well. I'm going to get into a spat with him now. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say my piece. And I am never again going to interact with Scott Ritter or pay him any mind whatsoever. I just want to be clear. I'm not doing this to create drama. I'm here to end it and end my relationship with Scott Ritter formally in front of everybody because I want nothing to do with this guy.
So Scott Ritter has been on this program before. Well, I'm sure we'll have him on again. At least I hope we do. Strange what's going on with Gonzalo Lira now. Scott accusing him of being an SBU agent. I don't know. So it doesn't make sense to me on some levels because Lira has been so critical of the Zelensky regime, the war. So in that regard, I mean, I think from what I've seen anyway online, and I probably haven't, I know I haven't read everything or, consumed all of Gonzalo Lira's content, but I have followed him to some degree. And it's always been, in my view, that what I've seen has been consistently critical of the Ukrainian regime, which is, I thought, why they targeted him, to arrest him. Something has changed since that original video from Scott Ritter, the original incarceration of Gonzalo Lira, to what's going on now. Something has changed to make Scott Ritter think, and some others as well, that Gonzalo Lira has in some way been compromised, his journalistic integrity. So, and Scott Ritter is not alone, I'll tell you that. We've got this guy here. What's this fella's name? Wasn't really familiar with him until I started looking into this a little bit more. This is Philip Ittner. Not familiar with him until now, where he's saying good riddance to Gonzalo Lira. Strange. Again, this post here also doesn't make sense. Obviously, I don't have enough background on it, but I present it to you tonight because this is an important story, in my view, because we're talking about someone who, until now, I've always viewed as a journalist, and because we're all about free speech and freedom here, now it's another journalist being silenced. I've been in that same frame of mind as Scott Ritter on that first video that Scott posted that I just ran for you, where if you silence one journalist, it has a chilling effect on all journalism. And right now we need more scrutiny of the Zelensky regime, of NATO, of the Biden administration, of Trudeau, not less, and the government policies that have led to this conflict, this war in Ukraine, to the massive numbers of deaths there. We need more scrutiny, more questions. Why? Because we know that some 400,000 Ukrainians have now been killed. That's the latest report that I've seen, and up to 2 million wounded in Ukraine. Ukrainians. We know that there are reports out there that Nearly half the population of Ukraine has left the country. Only about 18 million people left in the country today, and about 14 million people have been forced to leave or have chosen to leave the country as a result of this war. And now we have this.
Hey, Gonzalo Lira, good riddance to bad rubbish. Let's make some things perfectly clear here. You were never a journalist. Propagandist, sure. Polemicist, yeah, I think so. Heck, maybe even a full-fledged fifth columnist. But you deserve what you got. And you better thank your lucky stars that it was the Ukrainians who were in charge here in Kiev when you tried to pull your shit. The Moscovites, well, they don't take kindly to people who do that kind of stuff. And Georgi was actually a journalist as opposed to what you are. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Okay. I have to confess, I do not have enough background on this or information or insight to give you a proper assessment of what the heck is going on. I present it to you tonight, though, because I advocated for Gonzalo Lira here over the last couple of days with his escape or attempted escape from Ukraine. And I said, we should, I encouraged people to go sign our petition to protect journalists at maverickpetitions.com in support of journalists who are being targeted in Ukraine because they're on a death hit list. But now all of these allegations, the concern that I have is that if these are true, I find it extremely concerning, distasteful, disgusting, really, because when someone poses as a journalist, it undermines everything that I've been talking about here right now, where I say, sign a petition, support journalists, support free speech. Journalists should be afforded a great deal of latitude when it comes to covering a war, as should anyone who wants to express their view, their right to free speech. And even if it isn't a right in a country, it should still be afforded to them in order to express their views and to practice the craft of journalism in the interests of bringing information to the public, acting as the eyes and the ears of the public, even in a war zone, especially in a war zone, and especially as it relates to political coverage. The problem is, it has always been, and it is especially pronounced today, the problem is that sometimes people just say they're journalists, when in reality, they are political activists, which is sometimes borderline, cheerleaders for a particular political perspective with no balance, no objectivity at all, because they're really, at that point, propagandists. Or worse, they're agents of a state masquerading as journalists. That makes life very dangerous for journalists in general, because then all any nation state has to do in order to target, persecute, and prosecute a journalist is say, no, you're not a journalist. You're actually a state actor. You are a spy. And we know that intelligence agencies don't hesitate to infiltrate newsrooms, news organizations, to recruit, pay, corrupt journalists in a variety of ways, including through the dissemination or the distribution of money. They pay them off, they buy them, and then put them into positions where they spread political ideology, political agendas. And when that happens, it puts all journalists more in jeopardy. So just as governments incarcerating journalists has a chilling effect on journalism, so too do intelligence agents or agents of states who pose as journalists also have a chilling effect on journalism. And it makes life very dangerous for journalists because then all journalists can be targeted as masquerading or carrying a facade of journalism when in fact they might actually be spies. It makes it easy for governments to falsely accuse actual journalists of being spies or agents of enemy states. Don't like it. I wish there was an easy way to deal with it, but I find it extremely distasteful. Don't like it at all. And now we see these accusations flying around. And I wouldn't want to be in Gonzalo Lira's shoes tonight because it's pretty clear that nobody on any side trusts the guy now. That being said, I still advocate for his release. I hope that he is safe. I hope that they do find their way clear somehow to release him and allow him to leave the country and find his way to safety someplace. I don't know if that's going to happen. If indeed he is an SBU agent working for the Ukrainians, then I expect he's probably very safe tonight, even if he is in jail for appearances only. If he is actually a journalist, his life may be in jeopardy. Now, I don't know. I can say that when Scott Ritter speaks to this, I'm listening, because I believe that he does speak with some authority and knowledge, especially on matters such as this. So I'm definitely paying attention. What is a journalist? It's a question that is more difficult to answer now than ever before because of the way the medium has changed. Social media has changed everything. There are citizen journalists, there are activist journalists, there are old school journalists, there are television, radio, newspaper. Where do they come? Where do journalists come from? What end of the political spectrum? You see today, though, journalism is also very polarized. It's actually very difficult to practice journalism in any kind of balanced way because through social media, because of the medium, you have to almost take a side. You kind of do have to take a side in politics and come down on that side and then practice your journalism over there from a particular perspective in order just to generate an audience because the political climate is so polarized. But there's a big difference between being even an activist journalist or a traditional kind of journalist where you're just trying to tell all sides of a story, or a movie journalist, or various kinds of journalism. There's a big difference between that and being an actor or an agent for a government and a spy agency, calling yourself a journalist. Don't like that at all. That's what puts all journalists at risk. You can assess for yourselves. If I get more information on this, if I get more insight and figure this out on a deeper level, I will share with you. But until then, I'm kind of reserving judgment and still advocating for Gonzalo Lira's release, because regardless of the situation, I want the guy to be safe. And well, I don't understand why he wouldn't make an extra effort to make his way to Russia instead of Hungary. I'm not in his shoes and I wasn't there, so I can't I'm not really in an honest position to second guess his decisions and his strategy as it relates to all of this. Anyway, more on that story to come, I'm sure, in the days ahead. Very interesting indeed. I'll be right back.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
I'm back. And one of our show supporters and viewers, one of the Maverick family, sent me a link to this tonight. She said, actually, you know what? I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to save this because it's funny. I did want to speak about Ukraine again because I'm also getting people sending me information, well, links anyway. I don't know if I call it information, about a potential draft being implemented in the US. And I know that they were speaking about this tonight, even on that on the other show, Redacted. So that came up there where they had Colonel McGregor on. And there's some speculation that maybe the US might bring in a draft in order to boost the numbers in the military at a time when, I guess, interest in joining the military might be waning. Now, I don't know exactly how true that is or where that might be going. That's just what they were talking about over there. And I know that some people have been very worried about it. I'm also very worried about a potential draft or even just having our military become directly involved in that war. I think that the public opinion on it will change considerably if they really do start sending our sons and daughters into battle over there in Ukraine, where, as I said tonight, we know that, we know the reports are anyway, that some 400,000 Ukrainians have been killed in that conflict and 2 million wounded. They're running out of soldiers. That's why this post is also going around. And I can't say if this is actually accurate. In fact, I would say this might almost be propaganda. But maybe not so much propaganda, but maybe foreshadowing of what might actually be coming. So here's this post saying that Defense Minister of Ukraine, Oleksiy Reznikov, quoted as saying, a huge number of ethnic Ukrainians live in Canada. It's one of the largest national communities. Now, when the historical homeland needs them, they must be here. They are Canadian citizens, but above all Ukrainians. We will ask the Canadian government to send 30,000 men of military age to us. Now, I went looking for confirmation of this, and I have not been able to find it tonight. If you guys know if there's actual confirmation of it, send it to me. I'll be looking further. I didn't have enough time to either discount it or confirm it. I did put some effort in to try to confirm this, and I've not been able to, as of yet, one way or the other, come to a conclusion. That being said, I think it's a real risk. I don't think that we are necessarily that far off from our governments here in Canada and the US saying time to send in some of our own troops. Hard to say, but there seems to be real willingness and a determination to keep this conflict going. And that means they're going to need boots on the ground, and there's only so many places they can go to get them. I'm fearful that this might turn into another Vietnam of some kind, maybe on a larger scale even. I don't know. I'm speculating. That's my opinion. And when I see things like that, even if it isn't actually true, you see enough of that out there, that's an indication that somebody's thinking along those lines. I would say that's at least a trial balloon, a political trial balloon to get that out there and gauge public opinion in some way. If not, propaganda. It's a warning sign. Even just having people talk about it, putting that out there, that in itself, that's enough to escalate worry for me. And I think everybody really needs to be paying more attention to this. It's just far too easy for us to slip into complacency, let this war fade into, the back of our minds instead of being at the forefront when it needs to be at the forefront because of the level of risk that we are facing. As a result of everything going on over there, that conflict has us closer to an actual possible nuclear war than we have ever been in the history of humanity. That is the true existential threat to mankind compared to climate change. We all need to be thinking about that. And because that is such a dark, serious subject to be discussing, I am happy to now bring you this video, which was, as I said, sent to me by one of our Maverick family members, who I have yet tonight, but probably should actually. This is comical. It's Canadian, but I hope our US viewers will get the humor. British humor is one thing. Canadian humor is kind of another thing. Canada is kind of a mixed up, crazy place. There's more diversity here, if you want to use that, than maybe people realize, from igloos to actual homes and a variety of accents and languages. This is this is funny. I hope you get it. Here we go. Let me bring it up. Oh, we lost it. All right. The audio going here. Here we go. So this is real on their Reels page, and I don't like it when they the way that it technically runs here. But here we go.
Why the country's in fucking shambles, eh? None of you can fucking get along, bud. Oh, is Ontario a little sad because mommy and daddy split up today? Hey, I will fuck you up. All right, we've called this meeting to discuss our course of action now that our prime minister has announced that he's getting divorced. Hey, do we get to divorce him too, or what? How's this work? Oh, Beeble toy. Ah, Hip and Bibbly. Oh, for fuck's sakes. Labrador. What the fuck did he say? Well, he said now that Trudeau's single, Alberta can finally fuck him like they've been talking about. Hey, are we gonna have a problem here? The fuck you looking at me for? Newfoundland's the one who said it. Yeah, but you guys have always been a package deal kind of thing, right? It's like living in Quebec and being a shit driver. They just go hand in hand. Hey, Tata, aren't you on your 7th fucking DUI this month already? I mean, the first 6 were on a combine, so they don't really count. Wait a minute. Does that mean if I stab someone while I'm on a combine?
No. What the fuck's wrong with this guy?
Jesus fuck, it was just a fucking question, guys. Calm the fuck down.
Hey guys, I just got that memo about the emergency forest fire meeting. Am I late?
But that was a fucking month ago. Seriously, how fucking high are you right now?
I like 6'3", man. Maybe 6'4" with the boots though.
Whose fucking idea was it to give this guy his own province, huh? Fuck, esti de sacrament tabarnak.
Hey, what's going on? Why is that Mexican guy over there so mad?
Hey, who the fuck are you calling Mexican? And you guys wonder why the country's in fucking shambles, eh? None of you can fucking get along, bud. Oh, is Ontario a little sad because mommy and daddy split up today? Hey, I will fuck you up.
That's Canadian humor. Sorry about the language. You know what else is Canadian? Kevin Westfall. We had him on. He was in Elmira, I believe it was, just last weekend. I think they had him and his band, and they are so awesome. Anyway, found another song from that performance. Going to share it with you here tonight. This is the Beer Song, also very Canadian. Hang on, let me get it up here. We got to smile a little bit here. We got to smile. Here we go, the Beer Song with Kevin Westfall and friends.
Here you go, folks, the beer store song. Oh, sitting around the table with my uncle and my cousin. Before we knew it, we went through a dozen. I opened up the fridge and there was nothing there to pour. We had to make a trip to the beer store. Well, there's people going in, people coming out, bringing empties back, taking full ones out. There's 6 packs, 12 packs, 24. We had to make a trip to the beer store. Oh. Well, I was working hard in the yard. Thought I'd better stop, maybe have a little break and have a wobbly pop. I opened up the fridge and there was nothing there to pour. I had to make a trip to the beer store. Well, there's people going in, people coming out, bringing empties back, yeah, taking full ones out. There's 6 packs, 12 packs, and 24s. We had to make a trip to the beer store. Well, I know the day is soon to come when I can't get to and I can't get from. So what will I do when I have no more? Oh. Well, we better get going to the beer store. There's people going in, people coming out, bringing empties back and taking full ones out. There's 6 packs, 12 packs, and 24s. We had to make a trip to the beer store. Yeah, we had to make a trip to the beer store. Yeah, we had to get going to the beer store. The beer store song.
Love Kevin Westfall. Thank you, Kevin. Wickedly awesome. Okay, folks, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. If you are so inclined, you can support the show, and we do need the support, at freedomreporters.com. You can donate there. Every little bit helps, and we sure would appreciate the support. Bills to pay. And you can also support through the Give, Send, Go page at maverickdonations.com. Please like, share, subscribe, ring the notification bell if you subscribe on our YouTube channels. And please subscribe over on Rumble, the free speech platform. Imperative that we grow over there. You guys know the routine. They're shadow banning and suppressing and doing all of the things that they do on Facebook and YouTube. But over on Rumble, we are growing, so things are looking good there. You can also donate through the Rumble Rants feature in the chat area on Rumble as well. And so if you like what we're doing, support us. Simple as that. Thank you, everybody, for joining me here on the program tonight. Thank you to Rhonda for coming back on the program and sharing more of her story, which is ongoing, and we will continue to cover her and what she is doing because she is having an impact, not just locally, but internationally as well. No question about it. It just shows that if you get involved in your local community, you can act locally and have an impact globally. It's true, and she is proving it. I will be back tomorrow night right here on the Maverick News Channel. Thank you, everybody, so much again for hanging in there with me and sharing your evening with me here tonight. Catch you on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.